Hello and welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL, and today we're going to do something different. I consider this to be a relatively simple bracelet, but there's going to be some chances to explore a couple extra different things here. So let me just show you. So how I like to do this. Now, mind you, I always thought this was the fish bracelet, but apparently it's a dove's tail. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my strings in a sequence here, and I'm starting with my darkest one first, and then I'm going to go to my absolute lightest one next. And you'll have to kind of see how, I went with a fade of colors, and you'll kind of see why I do it this way. I've done this way since like the 80s. All right, so then it's the next color. And I'm just going over the whole group, minus the first ones I did, to be able to make it so it has this really nice start to it. I always think that looks best. So it's just a little trick you can do. You don't have to do it. I just prefer to. I don't want to seem too presumptuous or something. All right. Now, so these two darkest ones, we're going to try to bring the loop in a little closer there. So we're going to start with the chevron. So this bracelet basically assumes that you know how to make a knot that goes to the right, as well as knowing how to make a knot that goes to the left. All right, so we're going to start with going to the right. No particular reason, just feel like it. All right. And I like to start these off really nice and firmly tight because it kind of helps sets up the whole rest of the bracelet um, with a nice, good start, a nice foundation to the bracelet. Otherwise, it can be a little um, sloppy. I don't really like that word, but yeah. Um, so I'm going to take this dark green that I'm using, and I'm going to go all the way to the very end and just lay it off to the side. And then I'm going to go back to the middle, and I'm going to go to do the same thing for the other side. Seems to be caught on the clip. All right, there we go. And the important part is, okay, mind you, I did the left-hand side. I got it started earlier just to kind of save time. I wanted to show you how I did it, but then I didn't want to spend too long actually working on it. Um, so I'm just making this a chevron all the way to the very end. Now, when I first learned how to make a bracelet, when I first learned how to do the left-handed knot, this is what I had. I had a series of chevrons coming down. And what I wanted to know was there a way of making the chevron, instead of coming this direction, could I make it come this direction? And the thought suddenly hit me that if I take the next row and I don't go all the way to the end, I bring it all the way to where this one had left off, which is here. If I bring it all the way to there and stop, I could then turn it around the other direction. So let's do that. Okay, so we go all the way to the end. There, boom. Now the next one, it's just going to keep getting a little bit smaller each time. So now we're going to do the other side. And again, this is just going to go not to the very end, not to the very edge of the bracelet, but stop before we get to the end. Right? And now here's where could be kind of handy. I have a set of clips on either side of my board. And if you just like kind of lay those off to the side, you know that you're not using them until later, right? Okay, so now this next one, it just gets a little smaller and a little smaller and a little smaller. And this is just going to help it to taper in. All right. You'll notice as I go back and forth, I stay on the side that I was working on. It doesn't save a lot of time, but every time you save a little bit of time, you'll just make it go a little bit faster. So you'll notice I was working on the left-hand side. I will continue doing the left-hand side. And that's a good practice to be in, whether you're doing a small bracelet or something large, is stick to the area you're working on. It will, the little moments that you save will add up. It's also good in when you're doing something like this, especially if you're doing like fades and stuff, if you get used to the notion that it was 3 to the left and then only 2 to the right in the same row, because the center one doesn't get done a second time over. Sometimes when the colors are really, really super close, it can become really troublesome to figure out where you are. So knowing how the pattern works, knowing how many knots you expect to have will actually come into play, and that'd be very helpful. And then there's just the one in the center. Now at this point, we can go ahead and make the chevron going the other direction. And mind you, when I first figured this out, to me, this was like the greatest epiphany of beginning of making a design. And I'll kind of show you how this kind of evolved and how it turned into the pattern that I knew as the fish design. All right. We're going to bring down the the right-handed knots over on the left-hand side of the bracelet. And you'll see that we end up with a diamond that sort of got this interesting little fish scale effect going on in it. So if we're going to try to keep this pattern repeating, obviously we have to work on the sides. However, if I were to do the same thing that we just did in the middle here, down the sides, this dark color could easily be the same color that ends up going again. And anybody who has done, bracelets know that if you use one color over all the rest, it'll get used up so really quickly. So in this particular pattern, what we do is the next color here goes all the way to the middle, and it becomes the dominant color this time around. Now, why did I do the dark one first and now it's the lightest going on, and it will progressively get darker as it goes on? Because this light one will be a full part of the pattern, where that dark one that we started with is just the diamond. This one is going to have the tail with it. And if I started out this way, it'll go from the lightest to the darkest throughout the whole rest of the bracelet. So now I'm going to bring down the other side and show you how this is going to lead towards being the next chevron, right? So basically what we want to do is we want to have the chevron just like the chevron that we started with, all right? So obviously, in order to do that, we're going to end up working on the sides. Let me just bring this down. Now, since we're working on the right hand side, let's continue that, and I'm going to set the lightest strings off to the side because I don't want to go too far when I bring this row down. And again, this is just going to be just like what we did in the middle part of that first diamond, with all the rows just getting a little bit shorter. Now, for the more expert, I guess, bracelet makers, this would be a nice pattern to use with the straight edge design. I don't like calling it that because if you tie your knots right, any bracelet will be straight edged. But if you have that extra string running along the edge, you will get one extra knot, which means that dark color will show up at the end. The way this is set up, it won't. So it looks a little bit cooler if you do that. Right. And a little bit shorter. So you can see it was 4, then 3, then 2, and then 1. And you'll notice like the darkest color does not show up, which is unfortunate because it would look pretty cool here, being how this is a really great fade and all. So now I can bring this light color, again, we're trying to make this the same chevron as before, right? So this goes all the way up to the right, all the way to the end. And now we do the same with the other side. So again, take the light one, set it off to the side, because in the heat of woohoo, we're getting something done, you don't want to go too far and have to take out knots. So. And again, it's 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So now that we have the left-hand side kind of down here like this, I'm going to go ahead and bring this one out to the end. And you kind of notice that the bracelet's sort of jumping around a bit because of the way that it's in the clip. We can fix that by just simply getting the bracelet just a little bit higher into the clip. So that kind of stops that nonsense right there. All right, so now we have basically the same chevron here as we had at the very beginning. So what we will do is do the same thing again with bringing the parts down. And again, we don't go all the way to the edge with this. We want to stop just before the edge. Like that. And if it helps you at all, you can just set those off to the sides and it'll just make it a little bit less tempting to accidentally tie a knot to a string that you didn't intend on doing. And it's really easy. If you have clips like this, you can use this piece here as a means to just sort of hold the strings off to the sides for you. It's a pretty easy way of doing it. I find it to be incredibly helpful And again, we just kind of keep going to the side that we were on and bring each of the sides down. This one has 4 knots. So when we get to the other side, it'll be 3. And you don't want to necessarily like clip the strings to the side too hard or anything. You want to be able to let the strings kind of move around, and you're pulling tension and stuff. So you might you don't want to like disfigure the bracelet because you have it pinned down too hard or something. I wonder if you could see it. It's the same shape as the fish that people put on the back of their cars in the license plate, right? This whole diamond here with a tail coming out to both sides. And when I do the other video, I will include a picture of it so you guys will actually be able to see what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's why I don't see this as a dovetail. This is a fish. It's right there. Okay. So now I've given you the basis. Everything about this repeats. This one obviously come all the way to the center again. Everything is going to repeat. But I also wanted to do this bracelet in this tutorial, not only because I'm going to be making this as a much larger design. This is a good way of teaching segment knotting, which is all about trying to capitalize on momentum and to doing things the fastest way possible. So with that in mind, let me show you a different way than what we were just doing. All right. We know that this one is going to go all the way to the center. So we will go ahead and do that. And since we know that staying with the areas that you're working on makes for a little time saved, what we will do is we will go ahead and we'll fill in this whole right side. See, before we had gotten the whole middle thing taken care of or whatever. This time it's a little bit different. And obviously, since I'm going to be working on a much bigger project, I will be choosing to try to find methods that help to maximize my time at the clipboard, because obviously I don't want my project to go on for too long. Not if I don't have to. Shoot. Setting there. All right. So now I finished the entire right side, and now because we know that this one was going to go not just to the middle, but actually all the way across, just like how this is up here, we can actually go ahead and make one pass all the way from one side to the other with this screen. Across the middle, and just keep on going. All right, now, because we're doing it this way, the important step that you want to make sure that you don't mess up is finding where that color was that is going to be going off to the left-hand side now on this one, and making sure you set it aside because you don't have that natural stopping point. Now, if you're really new to doing bracelets, you might want to go with the way that I showed you in the first setup because it's a whole lot easier to see where to start and stop to. This way is a little bit more advanced, but it is much, much quicker. So that's kind of the trade-off, is it may be faster, but there is a potential for error. Mind you, like I said before, though, if you know that there's only 4 knots and then 3, 2, 1, if you know that, then you're less likely to make the mistake because you'll actually know the count. You don't have to rely on looking for color or other visual clues. All right, so now at this point, I can bring this one out. And you can see, so in segment knotting, the whole gist was we did one side, we do the other side, then we do the middle. And then it's just going to keep doing that, just working on one area at a time to kind of maximize our time with the knots and the strings that we're handling. And this is it. This is how you do it. I understand that there are some people out there who would take a pattern and follow each one of the rows coming down and doing whatever is necessary to those rows. This is if you're used to that and you want to learn how to segment, this is a great pattern to kind of kick that off with. And since you kind of can see how doing each of the different segments or of the piece, the middle, the right, the left, then the middle again, that those same kind of rules can be applied to most different designs. You just kind of have to find where and how to optimize it. There. And again, it'll just keep repeating down. And like I said, I just bring this all the way down, bring the other all the way down, and that's it. All right, take a break from this. I'm going to show you a different variation on this, but so on with the next one. So just like the last time, I put the darkest color than the lightest in this. This is more of a yellow to red to brown mix we got going on here. So the other bracelet, obviously that has a certain style to it and it's really nice. But I wanted to show you that there's a little alternate thing that you can do to change up the pattern. If you get tired of the first version, then you can try the second. Just something different. So again, this is just starting out exactly the same way. We basically start with a single chevron. Mind you, back when I first used to do this, I used to go through the whole series of colors first, get a small chevron of all of them before going into the pattern, which had a slightly different kind of look to it. But then, you know, at some point or another, I kind of wanted the other part of the pattern to kind of be more dominant, so I kind of skipped that. But all right, so this one, what is different is we start with just a single in the middle and we just keep adding and adding as we go along. And essentially what this does is those little boxes that we had, it reverses the direction that those little fish scale looking things, which direction they point. And again, the whole segmenting thing still holds true for this. Even though we've changed one aspect, we can still kind of stick to the same thing of concentrating one side, then the other side, then the center, and just keep going with it. It really will save you a whole lot of time and stress if you learn how to segment. I honestly, because I learned this way, I kind of found it difficult to imagine that some people don't use this kind of methodology, but um, learning how some people are doing it because it's all they've known um, kind of troubles me. I want to help them. I want them to see how much easier bracelet making can be. So essentially, it's the same basic, like setting down certain rules, like how you're going to make the string behave, and then follow those rules, and you'll end up with a pattern. So in this particular case, it's relatively the same as what we were doing with the green one. The difference being that the way that the chevrons inside of the diamonds and to the sides for that matter are just simply going the other direction. So next week, the plan is I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to double this pattern, and then from that I'll explain why we're not doubling the pattern that way. Because yeah, there's a different way, and that's I will show you the different way on the actual big project itself. So we're just a couple weeks away from me doing the insane thing of taking on something gigantic again. Okay, so I've sped this part up because basically it's relatively simple what I'm doing here, and I figure that we need to trim this video down a bit because it seems to be getting way, way out of hand. I was hoping that I was going to be able to reduce this video down to make it kind of quick and whatever. Mind you, um, there were a lot of things I had to kind of skip over to kind of help speed things along. If you're interested in seeing the whole thing and all of its content, I'll have a link down below for the live stream. Mind you, I think in the live stream we went for about 2 hours, so, and then towards the end it got a little silly. But that said, um, this is basically the big difference is which direction the chevrons inside of the diamonds are going. So um, obviously it's not such a huge epiphany or anything, but it is a different style. It is a different look to the bracelet. And mind you, I'll show you here in a minute. I came in today to this unfinished bracelet and was just like, okay, I want to get this done and over with, and just did it without even giving it a second thought. And now looking at it, realize, oh, I didn't keep all the chevrons going in the right direction. So I completely messed up the bracelet, and yeah, I'm not going back over the whole thing. That's just not going to happen. I'll probably, obviously, I wouldn't sell it in my shop or anything. Probably find some kid who likes bracelets or whatever that can't afford it and give it to him or something like that. Because at occasionally at the shows and stuff that I've done, that kind of thing happens. So they're just grateful to be given a gift. So that'll be it. Um, But this is a fun pattern. This is something that, like I said, any beginner can pick up. Just like any good pattern, you have to kind of keep your focus on what you're doing and follow the steps. And yeah, you know, oh, there it is, the fish thing again. I don't know why I'm so amused by that, but I love the idea that there's a fish in it. So yeah. Um, But yeah, I really hope that these videos are an inspiration to you. That I'm trying all these different kind of patterns and stuff to try to show you the different ways it can be done, because maybe the first one doesn't make you feel like, oh, I got to try that, and then the second one does. So yeah, there's that. Um, and then ultimately down the road, I plan on doing one where I know I said that this works out really well because you use all the colors evenly. I'm going to do one where that does not use the colors evenly. Each diamond looks the same as the other diamonds. Um, and I know this project's going to actually take a while, and it won't be that refreshing for like live stream or whatever, other than, the fun banter that we have. Um, but it's something that, again, might just provide some inspiration to somebody who, maybe they like that particular design. At the end of the day, it is a little bit self-indulgent because I plan on having it as a pillow in my house. So, that's kinda, I had to choose some things that I would enjoy, so that's what we have coming up. And there'll be a lot of, changing up strings, and if you haven't seen how to do that, we'll be covering that again. Um, yeah, so there's a lot of things planned down the way, a lot of fun things I think are fun things, so hopefully you will too. So let's stop the video here, and, I'll show you what we ended up with. Okay, so here you go. Um, you can see that obviously I totally got this wrong. If you look at the top, you see how the reverse would have looked, and it's sort of fun. And then for whatever reason, I just wasn't thinking and kind of happily skipped along and did it the other direction. So if you want to see what happens when you do it the right way all the way across, you can see with this green. Um, it's fun because the fade really becomes really evident. In the middle of the darkest one is the lightest colors, and then it's just the way that it moves through the colors. It's just a fun pattern. Um, Fortunately, the bigger project that I'm going to be making is going to be based off of this and not this one, because obviously I can easily make mistakes. So, um, even with all my experience, I still make mistakes. It is what it is. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more like this, leave me a comment down below, and we'll see what we can do. All right. Okay. And as always, don't get your strings in a bunch.